Thanks for being here. You can take a comfortable seat for your beginning meditation. You're welcome to close your eyes if that helps you to concentrate. And let your awareness filter out whatever would be noise or distraction, and to bring in what is nourishing for your attention and your physical practice here. And then lengthen up through your spine. And when you're setting your internal posture, just imagine that as equivalent of establishing your infrastructure. So that's not only your physical infrastructure, but also mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual. And then allow your breathing to nourish this plumb line, the spine, also the central channel, the Sushumna Nadhi. So your inhale, you can sense beginning at the base of the pelvis and rising gently up, ever expanding concentrically. And your exhale also beginning at the base of the pelvis and toning up along the front line of your spine. And sometimes when you first begin to breathe mindfully, you're getting the news underneath the sort of foam on the ocean, I call it, underneath the busyness of life. You're going to be getting the news of the inner body. So your breath might be a little bit choppy, a little bit shallow, expressive in one area and then not expressive in another area. So noticing that. And gathering your internal infrastructure and also sensing what's present today. Now please join your hands at your heart. And we can begin with the Gayatri mantra. Om Bhurva Suvah Tat Savitor Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimhi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Bhurva Suvah Tat Savitor Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimhi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Bhuvasuva Tatsavitor Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om. With your exhale, you may bow your head to your heart and release your hands. And while sitting upright and without needing to open your eyes, place the tip of the tongue behind the top two teeth and begin to practice the most subtle form of your Ujjayi breath. So not the most robust and not the medium, but the most subtle form. So the sound of your breath is going to be smooth and relatively quiet because this is your more subtle Ujjayi. And I'd like you to ask just how subtle can you make it while still being effective? And notice particularly the quality of tone in your throat, the quality of the sound of the breath in your throat, the smoothness or the space through which the air is passing. Please do that for 3 more breath cycles. The most subtle form of the Ujjayi breath. And by the way, it is said in yoga that the more subtle the practice, the more potent it is. Now, having had a visit with this most subtle form of the Ujjayi breath, please open your eyes, and we're going to transition to the floor because I want to teach a class this morning on our inner strength. So I'm going to be focusing on the breath, the pelvic floor, and then the deep six muscles. You'll also have the transverse abdominis in this practice. So you can ignore the blanket that's on my mat. It's there from a previous class I was teaching. I will ask you to lie down on your back with your knees bent. And when you lie down, place your fingertips just inside your hip bones. So if you feel to the bony part of the hip and then you go just inside, you can rest your fingertips there. You're not doing orthopedic surgery. You're just going to rest the fingers there. And please return to the most subtle form of the Ujjayi breath. So it's going to be your companion here. Now, if you visualize the breath being like smooth and glassy, as when you see the water that's become still and is mirroring the sky above it. I like that image for the breath this afternoon, that it's smooth and glassy like that. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to do something that's relatively simple, and for you to get real information from it, it's helpful if you keep it simple and not aggressive. So your left foot, thigh, and shin should stay as they are. You might notice if your left leg wavers or compensates for your right leg. And with the right leg, your assignment is only this. During the exhale, gently tip your right knee out to the side without taking your pelvis with it. So you only go as far as the pelvis is still stable. And with your inhale, you'll bring the right knee back up to its starting position. So the key is that you don't lose this most subtle form of the Ujjayi breath. So when you exhale, keep the breath smooth, and the tone at the back of your throat is hollow, open, not hardening or clenching the teeth or the jaw. So when you inhale, your knee is coming up to center. And when you exhale, it's going out to the side. Ideally, your pelvis is not trembling, it's not tipping. And your left foot remains really relaxed on the floor, and the left thigh very stable, just very still. Let's do it twice more, please. Exhale your right knee out to the side. Inhale your knee up to center. And just check on this last one that you're not using your elbows to stabilize your torso. So lift your elbows lightly off the floor, keeping your fingers on the lower belly. Let's change sides. So open your left knee out to the side with your exhale. The purpose of your fingers there is to sense that you actually do have a consistent kind of tone. Under the breath in the belly, there's a consistent tone. So when you inhale and you bring your left knee up to center, the tone will still remain in the lower abdomen, even if the inhale is expanding into the low belly. When you exhale to go out to the side, keeping your right leg stable, you want to notice that there's a need for tone across the low belly. Let's do it 3 times more, so that each time you have a sense of the smoothness and the commitment that you are making in the inner body. This simple action of the knee drops out to the side actually provides a lot of information, like how simple you're able to allow it to be and how tranquil your mind can be in the process. The smoothness of the breath without interruption, like it's consistently smooth. And that you're not compensating with your right leg to have your left leg go out to the side. So there's an internal coordination, an internal sense of stability. One more time, exhale your left knee up to center. And then relax a moment. So what you probably saw was there was a certain distance that you could take your right knee out to the side. And there was a place where you couldn't go past that distance. So now I'm going to ask you to take a blanket. Mine got all disheveled. Take a blanket, please, and from the storage fold, place the blanket under the right trochanter. So what I just did there is I picked up my right hip, and right behind the bone, which is here, I want to have the blanket so that now when I tip my knee out to the side, it actually is prevented from going into a place of laxity because of the blanket. Okay. So you're going to have this little bit of feedback from the blanket right here at the outer thigh, outer hip. Okay, come back to the Ujjayi breath, please. And then exhale, tip your right knee out to the side slowly. So as you feel the blanket, notice it as a friend. Now inhale, draw your right knee slowly back up to center, noticing the smoothness of the breath in the throat and in the lower belly together. Please repeat that. Now this time when you inhale and your knee comes up to center, take the next exhale to fan your right knee open like a windshield wiper, going down to the right side of the windshield, and stay there for several breath cycles. Imagine during your inhale that your thigh bone is getting longer, so you're lengthening it from the hip joint out to your knee. With the exhale, gently press your right knee out, even though it may not be able to travel any further because the blanket has prevented that. When you're pressing out, there is a set of muscles at the right outer thigh that are helping you with that. So inhale to make the right thigh longer, and exhale to press out. You may just feel that your hip is pressing out against the blanket, but you actually can't travel further to the floor. The purpose here isn't the distance that you can travel, it's the work you're doing inside your hip joint. So one more time, we'll inhale to lengthen the right thigh. And one more time, exhale, press your right thigh down, even though the blanket prevents it from moving any farther. Notice the outside of the right hip, just where your thigh meets the hip socket. And then inhale and glide your right knee back up to center. And relax the pelvis and the belly a moment as you change sides with your blanket. Place it under the left trochanter. Ideally, it doesn't block your left ankle, so you're able to really feel this at the outer hip. Okay. So beginning with the Ujjayi, exhale, tip your left knee out to the side. Remind yourself that the more subtle the breath, the more powerful it will be. Inhale, roll your left knee back up to center. And exhale, tip the left knee out. We're going to stay down for several breath cycles. When you inhale, imagine lengthening your left thigh towards its own knee. And when you exhale, gently press your left knee out, even though the blanket is blocking the movement. And you might feel the tone of those muscles right where the blanket is touching the back of your thigh bone. Just stay with that rhythm for several breath cycles, keeping it simple. So one more time, inhale to lengthen your left thigh. Think of lengthening the upper inner thigh towards its own knee. And when you exhale last time, press your left knee out as if it could travel farther, even though it's kindly being blocked by your blanket. And then inhale, glide your left knee back up to center. Slide the blanket away and relax a moment to notice. If you do nothing and you just see the breath happening in the lower belly, what is your experience there? And then please roll to your side. And you can watch me here for a few moments, and I'll try to place myself so I'm not in the light beam, which might obscure your view. Let's see. Okay. So when you lie on your side now, this is a time where you can put your blanket under your head if you like. So when you lie down, I'm going to ask you to stack the two knees and to place your knees so that they are perpendicular to your torso, that this is a 90-degree situation. Let me ask you for one more thing, just a second. Let's get a block up higher behind me. Okay. So if you have a couple blocks, it's going to give you a way to kind of measure what's happening for you. And that measure is something that we can come back to in the practice. So if, for example, I have my two knees stacked, I can see that one is not farther forward than the other. And the block tells the truth of that as well. And then I place my other block up. And what I'm going to ask is, when I raise my right knee, when you raise your right knee, like how far up on the block does it go? And let me turn a little bit of an angle here so you can see better. Let's hope that you can see that better. Yeah. So when I'm raising my right knee up in this way, am I able to really keep it right there alongside the block? And how high does it go, generally speaking? If you tip your block over, nobody can hear it because you're muted. But also, if you tip it over, you'll know that you're over efforting to go past your left knee. Most people end up leaning back to pick up their knee in some way or another. And I'm going to ask you not to lean back and not to tip your block over either. Okay, so let's set up your blocks as you need them to be. Mine are unstable on a couple yoga mats there of different thicknesses. So I'll set it up so it won't suddenly fall over. Okay, place your right hand on your right hip and find the trochanter bone, and right behind the trochanter, just push your fingers in there to lovingly say hi to those little muscles. And then using your Ujjayi breath, begin to raise your right knee up, like as if your right knee, it's not actually touching the block, but it's sort of scaling the block. And then lower the right knee down slowly. So it's not going to crash down. You're going to set your right knee down. And again, without taking your right knee forward of your left, nor leaning back, please raise your right knee up and watch it scale alongside the blocks. And then exhale to lower it back down, and do that slowly. So the exhale also matters. So does the descent. So the subtle Ujjayi breath to take your right knee up. And the subtle Ujjayi exhale to lower your right knee down. Please don't overarch your lower back. No need to clench the throat or the eyebrows. Right where your fingers are behind your thigh bone, you should feel a quality of tone when your knee is rising. And we want to feel a quality of that tone just slowly diminishing as you're lowering your knee. So the muscles kind of act like a dimmer switch going on, and also the dimmer switch going off. It's a slow gradation of change. And please do this one more time as you raise your right knee up. Keep the breath smooth. And then exhale to lower your right knee down. Okay, and if any muscles were burning, please know that you weren't alone. Somebody else in this class, their muscles are also burning. You can roll over to the other side. I'm going to turn myself around so that you can still see me. So this is a subtle practice. These are small muscles, but they're really integral to the health of your hips. And I did see the request in the chat to bring in some of yesterday's hip poses, which I will do for you. So left side, you can stack the two knees and make sure your blocks are on one surface, not partly the floor and partly the mat like mine were the other time. Okay, left fingers on your left hip and you can sense, there you are. And as you're pressing up and you're sort of scaling the block, notice if the left knee goes higher than the right knee went, or if it goes about the same. So in this way, your blocks can be a good little reflecting tool for you as well. So inhale to go up. And exhale to lower down. And the descent is also thoughtful. Please do this 4 times more, slowly. Some of you will notice that the height you go the first time then incrementally diminishes as you do your repetitions. That does indicate something. Some of you might notice that as you go to your repetitions, some of the muscles begin to burn. They feel like they're really working. That also indicates something. If there's any place in the movement where your breathing becomes more choppy or efforted, you're also getting an indication of something, which I'm not going to diagnose you during class or give you the prescriptive thing there. Let's do this one more time. So make a mental note to yourself. Your experience is right to left. In terms of the effort, the distance you could travel, the smoothness, you can make a mental note of all of those things for yourself. And then please release the assessing, investigating part of that and come up to prasarita padottanasana, the wide leg forward bend, like this. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to kind of wear a little bit of a thinking cap during class. So put your thinking caps on, they used to say to us, like in math school. So when you come down to prasarita padottanasana, put your thinking cap on and ask yourself if one of your knees traveled up less high or was more difficult to do, which hip or knee was that on? Which side was more difficult? And you can just make a note of that to yourself, okay? Now walk your hands out so it looks like your torso is doing downward dog pose. And let's bring a little bit stronger Ujjayi breath because now we are standing, doing a pose that's more weight bearing. And having both legs straight, please raise your right hip high, shift your hips to your right. So that your left leg will feel to be the longer of the two legs. The right leg will seem to be the shorter of the two legs. Notice the left inner thigh, particularly the upper inner thigh. And then exhale and glide your hips to center. And take your hips over to the left side so that your right inner thigh gets highlighted. The left hip is higher. And your right leg may seem like the longer leg. The left leg may seem like the shorter leg. Now, as you next exhale, I'd like you to press into your left foot firmly and tone your right low belly as you shift your hips back to center. Continue to your right. Press into your left foot to glide to your right. Now press down through your right foot strongly. Use your right outer hip and tone your left low belly as you come back to center. Continue to your left side, making the right leg strong. And now switch responsibilities again. Press down through your left foot, tone your left outer hip and your right lower belly as you come back to center. And switch across to your right again. And once more, press into your right outer heel and outer hip and use your left low belly to come back to center. And then walk your hands up to your hips, please, and rise up to standing. Turn your left heel slightly out to the left. Now I'm going to mirror you. I was not mirroring you a moment ago, but you were looking down, so hopefully you didn't get confused. So left heel out to the side and turn your right foot directly to the right. Okay. So hypothetically, when you were opening your knees in that first activity, you were not going to what's called the sort of the myth of the 180, the 180 degrees. We used to hear about these barn doors in yoga like decades ago. To open the hips like barn doors. Your hips are not barn doors. Your hips are your hips. And each hip socket is round and has your femoral head in there at a certain angle. The shape, the depth, and the angle of your hip joint matters to what happens with your legs in standing yoga poses. So as you bend your right knee to come into what you know of as Warrior Two pose, I'm going to ask you to really check that you have permission, compliance, participation from your pelvis. So a couple things to take note of. Press into your left big toe and left inner heel and tone the inner left thigh. Glide your left sitting bone towards your right sitting bone. Zip the pubic bone up at the low belly. And then from inside your right thigh, remember how you did this earlier, I want you to lengthen your right thigh out and squeeze the outer right hip muscle. You were pressing it against a blanket in the earlier part of class. So see if you can find that right now, that you're lengthening the left inner thigh, right inner thigh, and you're toning the right outer hip. And then float your arms up, Warrior Two. You're welcome to close your eyes and use like a medium version of your Ujjayi breath. And I'll just name these, the spots of joy along this line in the legs here one more time. So press down through your left big toe, the mound of the big toe, left inner heel. Ujjayi inhale as you lift into the left inner thigh. Glide your left sitting bone towards your right sitting bone. Zip the pubic bone gently up. And as you lengthen your right inner thigh, press your knee out like you're pressing against that blanket from the beginning of class. And it was your outer hip that pressed against that blanket. So your knee might press out, but you're really using those outer hip muscles. Notice if your stamina or stability might be any bit increased from your regular Warrior Two. And when you next inhale, then glide yourself up to center, join your palms, turn your right foot forward, turn the left foot out, take your right heel slightly back on the floor. And then same thing on this side, but in reverse. Okay, press into your right big toe, your right inner arch. Lift the inner arch and draw up to your right inner thigh. Glide the right sitting bone towards the left. Zip the pubic bone up so we are not collapsing into the hip joints. And then send the left femur forward like you did earlier. And as you think about pressing your left knee open, put your mind right behind the thigh bone where the blanket was earlier in class. And press right there. Float the arms up and ask if you might be able to close the eyes and make it like a meditation. And then inhale and glide back up to center and turn your left foot in. Take your feet parallel. Okay. And then hands to your hips and bow forward again to prasarita padottanasana. Now yesterday we were using blocks for these poses, so let's do that again. You can place your hands on your blocks. Lengthen your spine from your tailbone to the crown of your skull, please. Let's use the medium robust version of your Ujjayi breath. Turn the right toes very slightly out, and as you exhale, bend your right knee to come down to your right. Press down through your right outer heel and rise up to center. Tone the right outer hip right near your sitting bone and the outer thigh bone. Turn the left toes slightly out. Exhale, come down to your left. Press into your left outer heel. Tone your left outer hip as you glide back up to center. And let's exhale to the right. Do not hammock down below the tone of your right outer hip. And inhale, press into your right heel. Use your outer hip to glide yourself back up to center. And exhale again to your left. So tone your left outer hip, left outer heel. Keep the right inner thigh long. Press down to rise back up. Now turn your left heel directly out, just as far as it comfortably goes on your mat. Walk your fingers around with your blocks and turn your right foot to point to the right. So here's a reminder from yesterday. The inhale has a feeling of cow pose where the chest and the heart are going to come forward and you can rise up to your fingertips. And the exhale is going to have a feeling like cat pose where you're going to gaze back at your left heel and bring the right knee forward like you're doing warrior one or side angle pose. And I would like us to be able to move through these two poses. So you have to go with your breath cycle. The inhale is for cow pose. And the exhale will be for cat pose. When you inhale and you're gliding back with both hips, lengthen your spine forward, open your chest and your heart. When you're exhaling and gliding your right knee forward, let the right knee and your gaze pass each other as you look back at your left heel. Do your best to make these actions smooth and to coordinate them with your breath. One more time. I'd like you to finish with the position that I'm calling cat pose, which means that you come into a cat pose spine. So you're gazing back at your left heel. Press firmly into both hands. And as you glide your right knee forward, really think again about how you've lengthened from your inner thigh. Then press your right knee open against your right arm. And now slowly straighten your right leg, turn your right toes in, walk the blocks around, and let's go to the other side. So shift your right heel back, turn your left foot to point directly out to the left, and we'll start up on the fingertips for cow pose. You inhale to glide forward from your heart. And as you exhale, press into your right heel really firmly. So you're going to glide the left knee forward. And your gaze and your knee are going to be passing each other, as we say, like two ships in the night. Notice the strength and the smoothness with which you are making your efforts, how you experience the movements. This is a practice of honesty and self-discovery. So when you glide your left knee forward, if you're rushing that action, if your right heel bobbles up off the floor, if you become distracted or daydreamy, you take notice of those things. And then return to your inner practice. So we don't notice and then reprimand ourselves. We notice and then return to the practice. Let's do this as the last one. So you come into your cat pose spine. Press into your right big toe, right inner heel. Tone the upper inner right thigh. And as you send your left thigh forward like a telescope, use your left outer hip to press your left knee against your left upper arm. And then thoughtfully lengthen your left leg, straighten your knee, and walk your blocks and your feet back to center. Place your hands on your hips and rise up to standing. Go heel, toe in. Okay, so that's going to become the yoga pose now that's called parsvakonasana. So we won't need the strap this afternoon. I made I misspoke. You don't need it. We'll use it tomorrow or some other time. When we come to side angle pose, I'm going to ask you guys to do it so that you're going to use a taller block situation. So I'll show you with my right foot forward, my left foot back. This will be my right, that'll be my left. I'm asking for the taller block because I want you to be able to feel how what we did before in class is going to translate right now into your right inner thigh and outer hip. So set yourself up so that you have the stride that you would want for parsvakonasana. If you look down, you'll have your right ankle will be vertical, right shin, right knee, and your right hand and arm have a place to be. And the left leg behind you. You're going to have it at a slight angle with your left heel grounded. Yeah, there you go. Okay, hands to your hips if you like. You can sense across the lower abdomen there. And please bend your right knee and place your right hand on the tall blocks. Bring your awareness to the Ujjayi breath. And then press into your left big toe, the mound of the big toe, the left inner heel behind you. And as you lift your left inner arch, come up into the upper inner left thigh. Lengthen your tailbone towards your left heel. And glide your right inner thigh long towards the right knee, as if you were telescoping your knee to go forward. Now press your left knee open against your arm, but really concentrate on using the muscles at the right outer hip, right where the blanket was earlier in class. And then inhale, raise your left arm alongside your left ear. Sweep your lower belly in as you turn to your left. And I am recommending that you press firmly down with your right arm into this block so you can feel the coordination of the whole body. So it's not just your legs and not just the Ujjayi, not only the mind concentrating. The right arm also has a duty. So does the left. Now in this position, your sitting bones and your tailbone, they really lengthen towards your left heel. Your spine is at an angle and the pelvis has come with you. I'm going to ask you to open the left arm, bring it back down alongside your left outer hip, and then put your left fingertips onto your left low belly. And please gaze down towards your right leg. Now, as you exhale, press into your right outer heel, tone your right outer hip, and use your left low belly as you start coming back up to warrior two. And sweep the arms wide. It's not that you're not using the right low belly, it's that people forget about the opposite belly from the support leg, or what they think of as the support leg. Turn your right foot in, please, and step your left foot to meet your right. And come to mountain pose. You might notice like the circulation flow between one leg and the other. You might feel taller on one side than on the other. We're going to place the blocks for the other side. So then left foot stays forward, take your right foot back. You're doing well. Yeah, thank you. Okay, bend your left knee, please. Check you've got your blocks where you'd like them to be. And place your right hand on your right hip so you have one less tendril to pay attention to. Okay, so press into your right big toe, mount of the big toe, inner heel. Bring the Ujjayi breath up the inseam of your right leg. Aim your tailbone and your sitting bones towards your right heel. And start lengthening your left inner thigh, like a little telescope from the knee. And place your attention at the left outer hip so that when you press your left knee open, you actually feel the outer left hip is kind of the operator. It's where the leverage comes from. And then sweep your right arm alongside your right ear and turn into your side angle pose, parsvakonasana. Again, the left arm also has a duty. You can press firmly down with your left arm. This afternoon, the place I'd like you to least forget is the left outer hip. Those tiny muscles that wrap around your thigh bone and they head into your sitting bone. And they help to co-innervate your pelvic floor. And you used them earlier for that activity, both lying on your back with the blanket and lying on your side with the two blocks. Let's keep the activities of the legs going, but place your right hand on your right low belly. And as you exhale, press down into your left outer heel. Engage the left outer hip and the right low belly to bring yourself upright. Float the arms out and see what your warrior two feels like. And then straighten your left leg. Keep your feet parallel. And go heel toe, or step to mountain pose. Hopefully you have more or less equal kinds of circulation. And here's a little trick we can use for Shavasana. So you have your blocks and you have your blanket. Let's put one block aside. We need just one. Actually, let me ask you to do something. Go ahead and roll this. I'm going to ask you to open it once more. And then roll it. So it's a long blanket roll. And I'd like you just to briefly check this because I said we would check it again. And it's really helpful. I just rolled up your blanket with you or asked you to do that. So go ahead and use your arm to support your head. And when you come down, you're going to ask yourself, now, when you lift your top knee, what is the experience of lifting? How smooth? What range of motion? With what kind of ease? You can put your fingers again behind your thigh bone to check and see what's going on there. My hope is that you might feel like you oiled up the Tin Man and that your leg moves more easily. It may also go a little bit higher. Try the other side, please. It's not necessary for it to go higher. Really, I'm interested in it moving more smoothly. So less like a staccato. I like to say more like gelato. And when you're checking again that you don't knock your blocks over, and you don't also lean back away from your blocks. You can try it maybe 3 times so you're not just getting a one-off reading, something a little bit more honest than that. And so once you have a sense of that, then you can roll up. So you can see your computer screen for what I'm going to be doing for Shavasana. Okay, so we're going to take this block, and I'm going to recommend that you make a little pita of your block, like this. So you put it inside the yoga mat. That's to keep your feet from sliding. You put the soles of your feet together on the block and put the blanket over your ankles. Start there. Then you scooch in close to your hips. You put the 2 pieces of blanket under the trochanters out there. So it's actually under the outer thigh bone. And the legs can go out. But what is really cool here is that your knees can't keep going. The blankets are preventing that. And your sacrum gets to lay down against the floor. So this is for your deep relaxation of the pelvic floor, the inner belly, the mind. And the place where your sacrum meets your lumbar spine, we also want that to feel muy tranquilo, very relaxed, very tranquil. So invite your mind to really rest in the echo, particularly the echo that happens down in the lower belly, in the pelvis. Allow your mind and your body to become very still. The belly once again like water with a reflection. Though of course the breath is rising and softening. You could have an image of a tranquil mind, reflective, like a mirror on a pond. Allow the sacrum to relax a few degrees more deeply. Now we're going to gently fold the feet up, remove the blanket, and just take the legs out to Shavasana for a few moments. I put my blanket there just across my pelvis in terms of where it landed. You could do the same if you like. Notice the circulation returning back to your feet. From the pelvis down through your legs into your feet. This is the direction of Apanavayu, the downward flow, which I sometimes refer to as the garbage disposal of the mind. So as the circulation goes back down your legs to your feet, see if the garbage disposal of the mind might also usher out the waste products of the mind. And you can put your blanket aside. Roll to your side. come up to sitting, perhaps in the seat that you began with. And you can check and see what your original seat feels like now. And also what the quality of your mind is when you come back upright. The feeling maybe in the pelvis, hopefully of being more grounded or more established. And join your hands at your heart. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste. I will come up to see you more closely. You guys are warriors in training. I told you that before. You're warriors in training. Thank you, Polly. I'm reviewing the hips, you can tell, right? Today. Yeah. Okay, you guys. What are your discoveries? Evelyn, are you you look like you're resting back, like, oh, okay, that's over. Are you okay?